I am bringing you a video I did last year about this time, and that is my highs and lows of the reading year. I am currently at 100 books on my reading goal, 100 out of 102, and I know which the next two books I'm going to be reading are, so I'm going to be filming this now because I kind of know what my reading is going to be for the rest of the year, and generally, I've read a lot since then, and I have some highs and lows. So we'll start with a high this year. Last year I started with a low. This year I'll start with a high, because I think, in general, the quality of books I've read this year has been very high. The first of which is A Game of Thrones by George R.R. Martin and the entire A Song of Ice and Fire series. At some point I was resolute that I was never going to read this because they were like, oh, they're enormous, I could never possibly read them. And then I read them, and I think I gave the first 3 5 stars, and I gave the next two 4.5 stars. But this world is just beautiful, and honestly I'm so glad I read it and attempted to watch the TV show. Even though I didn't get into the TV show, the books are phenomenal, and all the characters and the world building has just been so wonderful to see. And it also meant that any time I read a book after this, I couldn't class it as slow, because compared to this, even the slowest book is quick. But generally I really enjoyed it, so definitely a high. Now I've got 3 lows on this list. There possibly could be a couple more, but the first one I'm going to talk about is less of a low than just a disappointment, and that was The Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller. I filmed a video review, so I'm not going to talk too much about my thoughts on it. I will just say that I expected to love it and I didn't, and I think that's a harsh lesson to consistently be teaching myself, is that having an expectation to love something can not always work out in your favour, which is a shame because Greek mythology is amazing, but we'll see. I'm going to attempt to reread it, I think, in the future to see if my perspective changed, because I thought I was going to love it. Next up we have a high that I'm probably going to have mentioned so much recently, and I'm not ashamed of that, and that is Ready Player One by Ernest Cline. And in the same vein, I would just say Ernest Cline as a whole, because Armada was phenomenal. I'm just too lazy to hold up 2 books. So Ready Player One I read at the beginning of this year, and Armada I only read this month, beginning of this month, and they were both 5 out of 5 star reads. They are such good sci-fis, which I really struggle with. Sci-fi is something that I have a love-hate relationship with. I seem to really not get on with most alien books, but things like this are just amazing. And the storyline in both of them was so good, the characters were so fun, and the worlds were just so enjoyable, and the writing was magnificent. So Ernest Cline's books are a definite very, very high point of the year. Next up we have one that was so strange, and it's definitely a low. I gave it 2 stars, which is the joint lowest I gave to any book this year. I've given 2 books 2 stars, but this one is really not my favourite. And that is Grasshopper Jungle by Andrew Smith. I can't remember when I read this. I read this in September or October. It was in one of my wrap-ups, and if you saw that wrap-up you'll know that this book is really, really strange. I just didn't understand the point of the whole book. The storyline didn't make sense, the characters were really whiny, I just didn't get it. I mean, the writing wasn't that bad, just it didn't make sense, and I didn't know what was going on, so I gave it 2 stars. And just, no, not a fan, not a fan. Next up, we have a high, and that is going to be Monument 14 by Emmy Laybourne. Some of you will know that I read this trilogy at the beginning of this year, and I just adored it. As a dystopian, it's so good. It's so different, because it's not a dystopian society must take down evil dictator. It is a dystopian where there is this cloud of shit that has come along and meant that going outside in the cloud affects people a different way. So you have the main characters who are trapped in a mall in this one, but the story goes on from there, and they have to kind of survive, and it's really cool, and it's just solid. I cannot wait to reread it because it was beautiful, beautifully written, and the next two books, I must say, have the best dual perspective I have ever read. Even like, though I read An Ember in the Ashes this year, which had an amazing dual perspective, Savage Drift and Sky on Fire did it perfectly, especially because it's first person. First person dual perspective. Phenomenal. Now we'll move on to the final low, and I think some people may know what it is, and that is The Fifth Wave by Rick Yancey. I'm sorry that I didn't like this book, but I'm not sorry because it was boring. It's a really long book, and I just felt like nothing happened. This is the kind of thing, like, I didn't get why it was so slow. Nothing was happening. I read this before Game of Thrones, so I probably could reread it now and think it's so fast-paced. But at the time, it was slow going, it was boring, the characters weren't interesting, and I don't understand why everyone loved it. The Infinite Sea was the better book. I'm sorry, but this was a low point for me this year. And before I move on to my final high point, I think I'll throw some honourable mentions in there. And that is my reread of the Keys to the Kingdom series was a very high point. The reread of the Mortal Instruments I'm currently doing, very high point. Reading the Young Avengers graphic novels, comic bind-ups, very high point. Aristotle and Dante discover the secrets of the universe, high point. One Man Guy, high point, just very good books. And I'm trying not to mention all the books I gave 5 stars to, but like, those were amazing ones. And deserve a special mention. So, last high point I'm going to be talking about and showing a book for is Elantris by Brandon Sanderson. Because Brandon Sanderson. I read 2 books by him this year, and hopefully I'm going to be reading a couple more right at the end of the year, but I'll count them next year, so that's fine. But Elantris I gave 5 stars to, Steelheart I gave 4 stars to. Elantris is phenomenal. It is a brilliant world where some people undergo this thing that used to make them Elantrians, where they had magic and it was really cool. The city was basically like filled with immortal gods, but it goes hideously wrong. Something has changed and now Elantris is dying, and one of our main characters undergoes the process to become an Elantrian, and because of what's happening, it doesn't really work. He's left as this decrepit thing, and it's all dealing with what's happened there. Then you have this religious aspect, and then you have a princess aspect, I would say, but that gets really political. It has politics, religion, and magic. It was amazing. Brandon Sanderson can write for days, and I'd read anything he put out. So, yes. So, these were my reading highs and lows of the year. So, I hope you enjoyed this video. I will have another one out soon. So, goodbye.